Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 106. In this episode, you're going to hear from Haley Peel, and she's a total badass. Haley has a doctorate in pharmaceuticals and is a mindful hiker and a coach. She helps high achievers struggling with self-doubt build confidence so they can uncover their inner badass. I love it, and I know that you're going to love it too. In this episode, Haley and I talk about breaking down your steps into micro steps so you can keep moving forward, her morning and evening routine, and Haley says to know your why. I would love to expand on this conversation on Wednesday in the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about hiking. Let's talk about adventure, outdoor stuff. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What do you struggle with? What has worked for you in the past? I want to do a deep dive into this episode, talk about it with you. So join the Ordinary to Badass Facebook group, and we will have that conversation at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time. And let's talk all about the episode. All right, let's get to it. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I'm glad you're here. Today's guest is Haley Peel. Haley, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, Marie. I'm excited to be here.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
Definitely badass. I didn't always consider myself that way. There was definitely a turning point that kind of set me on that trajectory, but it's still something that I continue to kind of draw on day to day. I don't always feel badass all the time, but I definitely draw on those experiences to tap into that side of me for sure.
Can you tell us about that turning point?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a long, I don't know if it's a bit of a long experience, but I'll kind of do some high points. But yeah, I had signed up, I had met these random friends at the climbing gym locally, and they're like, hey, we're going to the Grand Canyon. We're going to hike rim to rim to rim, where our goal is less than 24 hours. Do you want to come? And I was like, yeah, sure. I grew up kind of going out west with my family and, doing hiking in the national parks. And I'd had a bit of experience just hiking, backpacking, but I had never done any long endurance hikes before. So I didn't know what I was getting into. One of the key components for me that I kind of reflected on afterwards, obviously, was like your footwear. So I'd always hiked in boots, and I'd had a pair of like really, comfortable boots, but they were super heavy. So I, went to REI, got a new pair of boots that were lightweight, but they were definitely boots and more rigid. And so that was definitely a mistake I learned on. But to kind of, I guess, give frame of reference of what we were doing. So it's 42 miles. We did the South Kaibab to North Kaibab. So we started on the South Rim, hiked 7 miles down to Phantom Ranch, 7 miles across through the canyon, and then 7 miles up the North Rim. There's about 20,000 or so feet of elevation change. And, obviously the climate's very arid, dry. And so we started about midnight and started hiking down. And again, our goal was 24 hours. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, well, 16 to 18 hours easily. And it's just walking, right? Like what could go wrong? So we're hiking down, and we see these two guys that like look pretty fit, and they were walking up. They were 2 miles or so from the top of the rim, and they just looked like walking zombies. Like they had actually were finishing up rim to rim to rim. And I was like, and they were about 24 hours. And I was like, geez, I wonder what's taking them so long. Like, and I'm expecting to be done in like 16 hours. So as we're hiking down, I can start feeling like my feet, I have like hot spots on my feet. And so I we stop, we, kind of doctor at my feet. I keep going. The pain is still there. It becomes more intense. So we stop again. They put gauze on my feet and we keep going. And my feet turn numb, like just, it went from a sharp pain to kind of more of like a dull ache. But I was like, well, I can just keep going. Like it's not as intense pain. Like it's easier for me to walk this way. And so we get up we go through Phantom Ranch, we go through the Box Canyon, and then we hike 6,000 feet up to the North Rim. And so we got to the North Rim, exhausted, but pretty good, pretty decent spirit. We'd made it in 10 hours. And I'm like, okay, I need to like take my shoes out or my feet out and kind of and doctor them up, take my feet out. And like, everybody kind of gasps at the condition of my feet, like this collective gasp. And granted, like these folks that I had just met them, I didn't really know them very well. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God. So I kind of held back tears because I just wanted to break down and cry, but I didn't. I held it in, and like they just kind of doctored my feet, stuffed my feet back in and my boots and kept going. And in the moment I knew like, I don't have to go back into the canyon. Like I knew there was a shuttle bus that would take me around, but I remember thinking like, I told everybody back home I was going to do this hike. Like I'm going to do it. So we like went back into the canyon. And at this point, so we get down to the bottom. I'm feeling okay, of course, pretty tired. And then at this point, like they had told me to kind of keep, like I was moving slow. They're like, go ahead and keep walking. We're right behind you. So I keep walking, and there were people all day on the trail. But at this point in time, there was nobody. So, and I can see like my mind just kind of starts playing tricks on you and that sort of thing. And so but I just kept walking, and I can see where people kind of wander off the trail and just kind of your mind just kind of wanders. But anyways, at this point in time too, I had never really done an endurance training before. So the nutrition piece was very new to me. So I'm taking salt tablets, I'm trying to hydrate and eat, but I start to feel like very nauseous, and my muscles are really aching and cramping up. And so it was just like this mental, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, get me out of here. And so we get to Phantom Ranch, it's dark. I'm starting to kind of freak out again, but we rested, and the group kind of got together with like a game plan. And, they were really helpful with regards to like, just kind of trying to tell funny dating stories to get us out of our mindset. And, a couple of guys carried our packs for us because it was just like every step was just excruciating and like feeling delirious and just, going on no sleep. It was just very, just challenging to like put one step in front of the other. So it took us, the last 7 miles took us 7 hours to get out, and the sun starts coming up. And so we get back to the South Rim, and it had taken us 28 hours in total to get across. And, my feet, it looked like somebody had taken a sledgehammer and just like beat my feet. And so, I get home, and it was just, I think the gravity of the situation, like I went to work the next day, and they're like, I couldn't wear shoes for a week. They're like, oh my gosh, go to the doctor. And I was like, I'm okay. And like, no, just go to the doctor. And so anyways, but so I had a lot of just kind of physical and kind of mental healing. Like I realized kind of I've never been in a situation where I was depending on other people to help me get out of somewhere safely. And so that kind of shook me. And so for a couple months afterwards, I was pretty just shaken up. Like I had a trip planned to Kilimanjaro, and I canceled it because I just didn't want to put myself in an unsafe situation again. And so it took me a couple months to come out of that and kind of like really repair myself mentally and physically and just kind of heal from that. And I just discovered, I realized like to some degree, I actually enjoy kind of that pain and suffering, because I think it kind of pushes you outside your comfort zone, and you kind of realize like what you're made of. And there's a lot of kind of just introspective things sometimes that happen in those experiences. And I realized like, I don't want to live in the box. Like I want to get out there and try, new experiences. So that, led me to signing up for an ironman and hiking. I went to the Himalayas in India and hiked up to 18,000 feet. So just all kinds of different things like that have, come from that traumatic to me experience. So yeah, that was,
That's pretty badass. I have to admit, I love it. So definitely there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to dig into there, but before we do, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. As I kind of alluded to, I do I strive to live my life kind of at the edge or outside my comfort zone. Do you think life kind of begins there? So I am an adventurer, endurance hiker. I blog, have a blog about life outside my comfort zone. I have a pharmacist background, so I really enjoy kind of mentoring and working with residents and a leadership role from that standpoint. I've been on a really cool journey the last 6 months or so. I have discovered coaching, and I'm going through a certificate program for that. And so I'll be launching as a venture-inspired empowerment coach, where I help high achievers struggling with self-doubt build confidence so that they can uncover their inner badass. So I love your message on your show. I think it's very powerful and very needed. So
yes.
Awesome.
And I'm with you. I'm such a fan of like building confidence, building self-doubt. It's not something we all automatically have, and it's something I'm always working towards. And I know the OTBers are too.
Yeah, for sure.
So have you always been into adventure?
Yes, to a degree, but not to the level I would say that I am in now. I've always kind of enjoyed outdoors and hiked like national parks and things like that. But now I have this kind of craving to do like a longer, at least like once or twice a year, just kind of like a longer endurance hike or something that kind of pushes my mental and physical limits. So I think not always, so it's kind of like up leveled for me, if you will.
So the trip you were talking about earlier, like the 24-hour trip, and you said that you weren't used to being dependent on other people. What did that teach you? And is it any different for you now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So before that moment, I'd always kind of considered myself just like in sports and in, day hikes and things, just a mentally strong person. And that trip really, it took me to a place in that moment that did not feel mentally strong. I just kind of shook me, and I was, just very like not sure if I was going to be able to walk out of that canyon. And so I, really relied on the members in my group to kind of help lead me and guide me out of there. And so, at that time, I didn't have, again, that was my first experience. I had no frame of reference of what to expect or how to prepare. And so now I of course learned a ton from, nutrition and mental preparedness and physical preparedness and gear and things like that. And I use that to kind of apply to other experiences. But I think, just kind of being aware of like my physical and capabilities and doing more research into the trip of what I'm actually getting into is paramount for sure.
What do you think that it does for you when you're pushing your limits or maybe finding new capabilities? Does that affect like your outside life outside of hiking as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think I can tell like when I come back from one of those trips, like there's always, sometimes I'll do these trips because it's like, oh my God, like there's just either stress of daily life or maybe, struggling for, there's always, I feel like, if you're trying to search for something or maybe not necessarily fulfilled in certain areas, like I love looking forward to those types of trips. And so for me, like after doing one of those things and just kind of seeing what I physically can do, but more so like on a mental and emotional basis, then I come out of those trips and I just feel more like alive. I feel more present. And then it's kind of like being on a high when you come back and it's just I think you can apply that to like leadership roles, and it gives me more perspective too. Like I don't sweat the small stuff as much, just because it kind of takes me out of maybe like the minutia and you kind of see a larger perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've run a couple marathons, and I know I never considered myself a runner ever, but I would go run the marathon and then I'd be like, oh, like that feels kind of badass. Like that feels good. But I think like it also kind of pushed my limits for outside, and I was willing to try things that I never thought that I could do before. Has that been the case for you?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think, definitely from an Ironman perspective, so after my Grand Canyon experience, and then I like canceled my Kilimanjaro trip, and then I was after a couple months, I was like, no, I need something, you know, different. And I signed up for an Ironman kind of on a dare with some of my friends and had no experience. And it was like, oh, and I signed up and then I kind of panicked. I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? I've barely done even like one like sprint triathlon. I have no experience. This is a big like uphill battle, but you just kind of, you know, got a coach and kind of read a lot and kind of just have an overall plan. And then you kind of take step by step and just take it one day at a time. And yeah, I was kind of like, what am I doing? This is like very overwhelming, but then you just kind of break it down and yeah, it's pretty incredible what, you know, the human body is capable of.
So beyond that trip where your feet were all messed up and everything, often people can look at pictures, look at images and be like, oh, it's so easy. Or maybe it's easy for her. Haley's, used to this, everything's so easy for her. Have there been other hardships for you, like through your outdoor adventures?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. What's coming to mind for me is when I went to I did a NOLS trip, National Outdoor Leadership School, in India in the Himalayas. And going into that trip, so I had done the Grand Canyon twice actually. So I'd gone back and like beat our time. I felt great. I had, done the Ironman and I had done a little bit of mountaineering. So I felt like I was pretty badass going into this trip. And I was taken down several notches. It was a whole other level of just humility and there were people like, I thought I was in pretty, really good shape going into that trip. And, there were definitely more things that I could have done to prepare. I was definitely outside my comfort zone, had several kind of miserable days, just, the altitude and being in a completely, new country and, extremely physical, 65-pound packs and, with crampons and ice axe and just different, being on a rope team, all that was very new. And I just was like, okay, this is another learning experience and humility for me. And, but you draw on previous experiences and then you dig in and also learn to kind of lean on like the group that you're with. There's one day in particular that I kind of long day, but kind of broke down and just like leaning on the support, like we all kind of came together. I think, having, especially for trips like that, like having a good group of people that have your back is very important too. So.
Yes, I could not agree more, whether it's like running a marathon or doing some like outdoors adventure or really just in life, like having a girl gang or people that are like you said, that have your back and support you. I think sometimes other people can see stuff for you that you can't see for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so powerful just to push you, beyond what you thought was possible. So Haley, before we got on this call, we talked a little bit about you pivoting to becoming an endurance adventure coach. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm, like I said, I've been on this journey. I'm new into this arena, but I love it. I have a couple of practice clients currently, and it's just been really cool to kind of see that or continuing to see that transformation. So I enjoy, I think for me, what I've learned, I've always, relied on coaches, kind of like what you were talking about, because, they can see things that maybe I'm missing or have a block for. And so, I think that's that type of experience I would love to recreate for other people, that, it's, building that relationship and kind of seeing, what they're actually, and really like the answers are within them. It's, it's not, me telling, these list of things to do. It's kind of asking certain questions in a way that they can kind of realize the potential, and that inner badass is within them. But sometimes it's just kind of, having somebody that coach that, sees things that maybe you don't see, and uncovering that kind of inner knowing and inner badass for themselves.
So what was that like for you to pivot and change? Like, have you always seen yourself as being an adventure coach, or is everybody around you doing it? Sometimes it's different to make a change.
Yeah, no, I think, and again, I'm still kind of in this process, you know, I still enjoy pharmacy, and I really like, you know, kind of working with folks and the field that I'm in. But I think, you know, the adventure, I love like that adventure piece is also part of me too. And so, you know, trying to kind of I'm trying to figure out like kind of how to merge those two things and kind of take what I'm learning and continuing to do in the field of pharmacy from leadership and mentoring types of roles, and kind of apply that as well to working with individual clients. Because I think it's so fulfilling to kind of see like, you know, those aha moments and those insights that they come up with, and kind of see those action steps. It's like, it's very fulfilling. So I think just kind of finding some things to kind of combine that, you know, that adventure and that coaching aspect to it has been really, really cool to see. So,
yeah. And I think it's cool how, you know, you're doing this stuff with pharmacy, but you're also pursuing your passions in other places. A lot of times I think it's so easy to just stick with our 9 to 5 or stick with what everybody expects of us or what everybody else is doing, but that might not be what fills you up.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think, yeah, I definitely can identify with that. I think, you know, and I think looking back to that kind of Grand Canyon trip too is kind of, you know, in the aftermath of it, it was just like, oh man, like there's so much more, like, you know, that people can experience, and kind of doing things, you know, maybe that not the way society or your family or friends would be like expect of you, that normal path. Like it's been cool to kind of explore these other paths and kind of really, you know, dig deeper as far as like what kind of, you know, my authentic self and, you know, different, you know, gifts or things that I can kind of contribute to other people and into the world. It's been really, and I'm still on a journey to kind of see where that leads, but it's just kind of like taking that, you know, looking for clues and kind of seeing how I feel, and taking all experiences too. Like even, you know, if it's something that's like, oh, I don't like that, or like that, this is extremely, extremely painful experience. Like it's still kind of like taking that perspective and being like, okay, well, what can I still learn from that? And then what is that telling me? Because I think you can learn, I think the universe tells you from, you know, either good experiences or bad experiences. And I don't necessarily like classifying them that way, because I think it's just kind of, you know, is what it is, but kind of like taking that information and using that to kind of feel what's in alignment for you.
Right.
And so I'm enjoying kind of walking on that path to see where that goes.
So what would you say to the woman who wants to try outdoor adventure, but is scared to do so?
Yeah, I am actually kind of reminded of one of my friends that it was in a similar spot, and she was like, oh my gosh, I really want to do this rim to rim or rim to rim to rim, but she's like, I can't do this. And it's, and she wound up doing rim to rim, and it was really cool. I love, like, so I just helped her with well, I guess in that spot, I would encourage that person to explore it and find a community that helps support you, and talk to somebody that maybe has done something like that before, is very excited about that. And I think that kind of being around people that do those types of things are very inspiring. I mean, that's kind of how I got into it as well. Like I wasn't an endurance person, and I was exposed, and I have friends that do those types of things. It's like, oh yeah, you get excited. So finding people that do those types of things, and just learning as much as you can. And I think, you know, there's resources out there. But I think finding that person that maybe has done something that you're interested in before, and kind of learning from their experience. And, you know, I have plenty of tips to tell if anybody's interested in doing a Grand Canyon experience, because I've learned the hard way, you know, what not to do. So
yeah, and sometimes it helps hire a coach or a mentor, so you don't have to go through all the hardships yourself. Like, yeah, it's still going to be hard, but you can bypass some of the stuff from somebody who's already learned the tips and tricks on, you know, maybe not to have your feet have the hot spots, or, you know, there's probably things you learned about footwear and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Which is definitely, you know, do not wear hiking boots in the Grand Canyon. Tennis shoes, spell shoes, or like soft shoes are totally fine. That's the preferred footwear in the Grand Canyon.
Huh. Like you would never think, you know, like I would think just like you, like, wear hiking shoes.
Yeah. For sure.
So going through all these hikes and these long times, like you'd said, it plays tricks with your mind. What have you learned to help you get through those times?
Yeah. So I think, for me, it's, one thing is kind of determining like your why for me on some of these things. Like, I'm thinking of my Ironman experience, and one of my coach was like, that was kind of the thing as far as like through the whole experience, but definitely on like the day of the race, it was, kind of define what is your why? Like, why are you doing this? And it's needs to be more of like a deeper why, not, kind of keep asking yourself, whatever that why is. And it's like, okay, why is that important to me? And whatever that is, like, why is that important to me? And you kind of get deeper into that. And I think that helps, when you're discouraged or, you're not, having an off day, like kind of going back to that why is very helpful and can kind of ground and center you. But I think too, just, one of my friends' mantras is embrace the suck. Having that expedition mindset, if you will, of just, sometimes you're going to have bad weather, and everybody realizes that. And it's like, it kind of is what it is. And, you're just doing what focusing on what you can control and letting go of the rest, in those moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for some reason, what popped into my mind is like what I like running marathons, and I've done hiking too, but sometimes when it's like at the point where you just want to stop, like I would have to put, okay, I'll run to that next that next street sign or that next stoplight or whatever it is, and then I can walk for 1 minute, and then I'll run. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just have to set like small milestones just to keep yourself moving.
Yes, exactly. I had, so in my Ironman, it was the same thing. And my coach was like, you're going to hit a wall. Like, and at some point you're going to hit that wall and you have to figure out what to do. And so, yeah, for me in that race, it was like mile 20. You still have like six miles to go at the end of the marathon. And it was just, you're just like, okay, I see that in front of me. I'm just going to jog to there and then I'll take a break. I'm going to jog to there and take a break. And it's like having that, it's kind of being in that moment and then like breaking it down into like bite size, like only like with your mindset kind of being like in the now and just kind of breaking that down of where you are and kind of seeing where you can go to, I think is helpful. It's overwhelming to think of like the whole day, but just kind of breaking it down into like that moment, like that next 100 yards or so. Yeah. And you just keep moving forward.
So how did you train for your Ironman?
Oh gosh, I did hire a coach for this one because I had no frame of reference really of what to do, and so with that and it being my first experience, basically, so it's swim, bike, run. So it's swim 2.4 miles, bike 112, and run a marathon at the end. And so my Ironman experience was in Cozumel, and I had never swam in the ocean before. And so I living in, Nashville, there's no ocean. So it's, lake water and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, so it's a lot of it's consistency and it's slowly building. So you typically, it's kind of generally, you do each discipline 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. But for me, starting out, for most weeks, did everything 3 times a week. And you slowly, it's kind of like pyramids where you kind of slowly build. So each like week 1, 2, 3, you slowly, gradually increase each discipline. Week 4 is kind of a rest and recovery week. And then each month you kind of build on those distances, but you still incorporate that rest and recovery week. I did incorporate, strength training as well. That's really important from that standpoint. And then they say that the 4th sport is nutrition. So I really learned a lot about nutrition as part of that Ironman experience too.
Yeah. And do you have one tidbit or takeaway that you can share about nutrition?
Yeah. So probably a couple, but I would say, and that was actually one thing that I learned. I messed up royally, I would say, on that, because I had never swam in the ocean before. So I was super dehydrated after, very thirsty after swimming in the ocean. So I drank all of my fluids like way faster than I was intending to. And it wasn't water. It was, had electrolytes and calories in it, but then I kept up my eating plan. And so I took on way too many calories too soon. And so like mile 80 or so on the bike, I was feeling nauseous for like 2 hours and like projectile vomited at mile 80 and then like kept going. I felt a lot better after that, but I, I would say, don't try anything new on these races. And then learn, practice with what you're going to use on the course. And then every body is different. So it's really kind of testing. So like what works for me, it may not work for the next person, but it's, in your long training days and your long bikes, long runs, like you want to try different things. I would say for Ironmans and triathlons in particular, they will have a list of what of the food and the drinks that are going to be on the course. And so I would see what they were providing and then train with that to see how my body would react. And I think also having kind of a nutrition game plan too, kind of have that laid out, like written down before like the long courses. I'd say that applies to like endurance hiking too, just kind of knowing, how your body reacts. Also the salt intake too, like you really want to kind of understand for those long endurance hikes, like how your body, like how much salt that you need and that sort of thing is also important too.
Yeah. I mean, and same with marathon, I think that it's definitely helpful knowing what you're going to eat during the run. But then also having other people, because sometimes you just don't know. And so whether it's a coach or just friends, other people who've done it before, I think that it can push you a long way or take you a long way as opposed to having to figure it out painfully for yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I, drew on a lot of resources too, for people that had done Ironmans and I was taking notes all the way. So yeah, it's definitely, drawing on the resources and from other people and their experience is definitely helpful too.
So Haley, I know that you talk a lot about confidence and overcoming self-doubt. Do you have any tips for us on how we can be more confident?
Yeah. So I think, one thing that sticks out for me, I try to do, and actually probably from your background, you're probably aware of this technique too, but just like in the moment, like I think it's really important to like make a habit of cultivating like a confident mindset. And one of the things that I like to do, and I've incorporated more regularly, I guess two things. One is meditation, but then also in conjunction with breath work, which I will say like before kind of actually applying it on a more regular basis, it was just kind of like, okay, that's nice. But like when I see it kind of make a habit out of it, I can see where, things that maybe would stress me out before, or, it's less so like I'm able to create more space and more distance and kind of feel more grounded and centered. So I, meditation, even if it's like 10 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, but making that regular habit where you can kind of separate yourself from like your monkey mind or your critter brain. And then also breath work is something like a 4, 5, 7 breath where you inhale to the count of 4, hold to the count of 5, and then exhale, to the count of 7, and then kind of do that several times. Like you can shift your body from the stress response to a relaxed response. And so I think those it sounds very simple, but it's actually, I think, I've seen that in myself, when you're making that a regular practice, there are things like, whether it's activity, whether it's like, for me, I freak out at like rock climbing. So like from a rock climbing standpoint, if you're at work, about to give a presentation or anything like that, like it's really good to kind of bring you back into the present moment and kind of separate yourself from that monkey mind or that critter brain.
Yes, I think it's super helpful. And breath work, I only recently started learning about it and doing it. And like, I always have resistance to it, but then feel like amazing on the other end.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Me too. I understand that feeling.
Do you have a morning routine at all?
I do. So I'm a morning person. So I get up usually in the 4:30, 5 a.m. hour. And then I meditate for 10 minutes and do the breath work. And then for me, I enjoy working out and just like sweating in the morning. That helps just kind of, even if it's just going for a walk too, like it just kind of gets my blood flowing and I feel more alert throughout the day. So I've really enjoyed doing that. Yeah.
And then is there a book that you can recommend and share why?
Yeah. I've been like consuming a ton of these different types of books recently. So if I could just pick one though, I would recommend Jen Sincero's book, You Are a Badass. I've actually just recently read it. I think she published it in 2013 or so, but she gives like really practical tips, like simple things you can do, and it's a good reminder. It's easy to read. It's a fast read, but it's shifted my mindset too. And as part of one of the things that she talks about in there is gratitude. So I'm starting to incorporate that, like a gratitude journal on a regular basis too, where it helps you kind of like, focus on, positive things, and your mind kind of looks for those more type of a thing. She calls it's I think she said like it's one of her secret powers types of a thing. So, but yeah, it's a great book, easy to read, very applicable tips to cultivate your inner badass.
So are you just writing down a couple things you're grateful every day, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so that's part of my evening routine is just trying to write, 5 to 10 things that I'm grateful for, even if it's just kind of small things. And so I've been doing that for probably the past month and a half or so. And so I notice myself kind of looking or seeing those positive things. So when something happens during the day, like I'm much slower to kind of get upset about those types of things. So it kind of helps just train your mind, or kind of train your mind and help rewire your mind to look for those things to be grateful for.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was my favorite thing is I've asked so many people on the show. I've said, typically I say, do you have a morning or evening routine? Nobody has ever once said evening routine. So I left it out today, so I love that you added that you do it as an evening routine.
Nice. Yeah.
So Haley, what's next for you?
So I am finishing up, like I said, my health and life coaching certificate. I'm excited to move into like a coach mastery training program as well. I also have another Grand Canyon trip on the books. So meeting a friend, and we're gonna hike it, and then take a day off, and then hike Humphreys Peak in Flagstaff as well, then kind of do a road trip up to through Colorado. So super excited about that.
Awesome. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want, and then you could share how we can connect with you.
Okay. Well, I kind of mentioned it already, but I'll reiterate it just because I think it's a simple tool. It's a free tool, but I think it's just really, really important. Is the breathwork routine. And the reason being, a lot of times we're in this kind of chronic low level stress state, and not even realizing it. And so it's just kind of bringing more awareness to that. And so when we are in this kind of like stress response, a sympathetic fight, flight, freeze response, we have a hard time, like with all different areas of our life, from like losing weight, because you could be eating all the right things and exercising and still having trouble losing weight, or maybe you're looking for or needing inspiration or wanting to be creative, but it's, our body, again, without even realizing it, sometimes can be in this like chronic low level stress state. So we can trick our body to move from that sympathetic to that parasympathetic, which is that like relaxation and healing response with that 4, 5, 7 breath. And it's just, a lot of times if we can just shift our body into that. So if you do that before your meals, before you give a presentation, I've used it last year when I was rock climbing in the Tetons, hundreds of feet off the ground, just kind of freaking out. And it's just really centers you and brings you back to the present, and you can just kind of move through that fear a little bit better. Yeah.
So is there a certain person that you follow, or like an app that you use? If somebody wanted to find it, where would they go?
Well, I don't have an app for the breath work. I just kind of practice that 4, 5, 7, but other things I highly recommend. So I use the Calm app. I also like Headspace. So I use that for meditation, but then I recently discovered in the last couple of months, Joe Dispenza and his meditations and his books. Like, I'm reading his book currently right now, Becoming Supernatural. And it's like kind of opening my mind even more. I love that. Cause he talks about too, like feeling the emotion, which is something that I like to incorporate in my coaching practice as well. It's kind of like that mental rehearsal, which is more than just visualizing. It's like actually feeling the emotions of the state that you're wanting to attract to you. So yeah.
Yes, I love it. I just several months ago I had read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which is also by Joe Dispenza, but I really liked it.
I have not read that book yet, so I'll have to check it out.
So how can we connect with you?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at Haley's Comments 310. And I do have an adventure blog, haleyscomments.org, life at the edge of my comfort zone.
Okay, awesome. I will throw that in the show notes. Haley, thank you so much for being on the show. You've been a total badass. I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie.
And with that, we'll end the show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it. Next Saturday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be hosting another masterclass, and I would love nothing more than my O2B podcast family to be there in the masterclass. It is going to be 5 money behaviors that are keeping you in debt, and then simple tweaks that you can use to fix them. It's not big changes. It's just small, simple tweaks or changes. And it's really amazing how a lot of people don't know about these. I know when I was getting out of debt, I really wish, I was like, why had nobody told me about this? I really wish somebody had told me. So I will throw the link to that masterclass in the show notes, as well as in your podcast episode. You might not be able to click on it, but at least you'll see where you can go. And I hope that I see you next Saturday in the masterclass.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.